Oh, Kaladin. Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I was just finishing reading up Wind and Truth. You know, now that the Stormlight Archive's first era is finally behind us, I think I'm ready to go back to the backlog that I've been putting off for so long, and maybe, reading a book that I haven't really given the time to yet, or maybe even revisiting a favorite. I just can't wait to see what's next on my reading journey. Now that Wind and Truth is out and behind us, those well invested in the Cosmere may find themselves ready to dive into the backlog of books that they've been holding off on while waiting for the conclusion of the first era of the Stormlight Archive. It won't be long, though, before we start to hear the rhythms of Roshar or the pull of Scadrial drawing us back in. If you're new to the Cosmere, this video isn't for you. This is my 2025 Cosmere reread order for fans who have fully plumbed the depths of the works of Brandon Sanderson and are ready to start their journey over again. I've broken my list into 4 pods covering groups of books with complementary lore. My goal was to span the entire published works of the Cosmere, while also allowing for the occasional break to mix things up. Each pod serves as a large chunk of the Cosmere to bite off, allowing for a natural pause to read other series before diving back in. For those watching this video months from now, this is the reread path I plan on taking in 2025. Once I've completed my journey, I'll be posting an article reflecting on how it went on investedinthecosmere.com. Be sure to sign up for my free newsletter there, or subscribe to this channel to catch it when it publishes. Let's dive in. Our first stop on our Cosmere tour is Scadrial. Many of us started a reread of the Stormlight Archive in preparation for Wind and Truth, so heading back to Mistborn first will be a refreshing change of pace. We'll start with the 11th Metal. If you skipped out on the Arcanum Unbounded, it's time to dive in. If you're unfamiliar with the 11th Metal, it's a short story published for the Mistborn adventure game, not to be confused with the yet-to-be-released Cosmere RPG. It follows Kelsier and his mentor Gemmel on a mission in the Western Dominance, set just 3 months after Kelsier got his Mistborn powers. Think of it as a prequel to Mistborn. Next up is a series that needs no introduction. We're going straight through the first era of Mistborn, ending with Secret History. To round out this group of books, we'll finish off with Elantris and Hope of Elantris. There's really no bad time to fit in Elantris into your reread, but some people find the pacing and writing style of the book not as up to par with the more recently published books. Thematically, it's nice to revisit the Elantrians right after we see them in Secret History, so throwing it at the end of Era 1 feels like the right play to me. While I enjoy Elantris, it also gives those who aren't massive fans a good reason to take a break from the Cosmere and catch up on their backlog. The next pod starts out similarly slow as others might feel the last pod ended. We're going to Taldain with White Sand. Like Elantris, I didn't really know where to put this book. There's sprinklings of this story in more than a few Cosmere books, and so I'm putting it here to warm us up to what's next. After White Sand, we move on to Warbreaker, and then return to the Stormlight Archive. I know what you're thinking. We just finished Wind and Truth. Why are we going back to the Stormlight Archive so quickly? There's still so much to unpack from Stormlight Era 1, and I'm already craving a full reread of the series, novellas and all. Positioning as the midpoint of our reread allows us to go in with a semi-fresh mindset, allowing us to pull even more details and nuance from the journey. Our next pod starts off strong with Emperor's Soul. It's a quick read, which, off the back of Wind and Truth, is refreshing in and of itself, but the plot brings a character crucial to the Lost Metal to the forefront. Speaking of Mistborn Era 2, we're headed there next. All 4 books, plus Allomancer Jack. We'll finish out with Tress of the Emerald Sea. Both Lost Metal and Wind and Truth suffer from the same problem of having overwhelming endings and set up more questions than they provide answers. This always leaves me longing for what's next, and we now know that we'll be waiting a long time for the next book. The self-contained and satisfying ending of Tress and its tie-in with the Mistborn lore will leave this pod with more of a resolved ending. And so we arrive at last to the final pod. At this point, there are no more large series to push through. Instead, we have 2 secret project books and our final run through the Arcanum. We'll start off with Shadows for Silence in the Forest of Hell and move on to Sunlit Man. These two pair well for their shared connection to Threnody. I had a hard time putting Sunlit Man here. It feels like the natural next step from Stormlight, but because it's so far in the future and the fact that the Stormlight pod was already very long, I thought putting it here made the most sense. Sixth of Dust is our last stop on the Arcanum Unbounded train. Again, some ties to Stormlight, but not enough to make that pod any longer than it already is. We end our reread with Yumi. I picked this book specifically because it has a clean-cut ending with just teases and hints of the bigger picture of the Cosmere. It's the perfect way to end your Cosmere reread with memories of the series that make it great, along with an eye towards the future and new stories yet to be told. And that ends my 2025 Cosmere reread. If you're into the Cosmere, and let's be honest, if you're still here, you almost certainly are, subscribe and stick around. I upload new videos whenever I feel like it, and I publish even more at investedinthecosmere.com. If you're getting ready for the upcoming release of the Cosmere RPG, sign up for my free newsletter to stay up to date with all the resources, maps, and campaigns I'll be publishing throughout the year.